Okay.
Just a quick question for Gary. Did last week's science meeting get recorded?
Yes, it was recorded. They all get recorded to the Scranton server somewhere, and then I think Nathaniel has to move them to YouTube. So with him on vacation this week, that probably didn't happen yet.
Okay, I was hoping to listen to it before this afternoon, but thanks.
Sure.
I think most everything else is kind of rapid updates. Gary, eventually I'll probably want to sit down with you because we have a couple of grapes now to redeploy. And so I know we had a really long list before the eclipse, but I don't know if as many people, now that there's no looming eclipse, will want to be a host.
Yeah, you're right. That's worth discussing, and that's part of the reason I've been trying to work on the website and get it up to date. So if we introduce this to some new people, we've got a good set of information. But we'll get to that later.
Yes. So I think in which case it's worth just starting in on the repository stuff. Dave, do you want to take it away? Perhaps not. Oh. Okay. I thought Dave was unmuting there for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you guys looking for me? I had to run out of the room.
Oh no, I just figured we'd start with the repository stuff.
Okay.
Because that seems to be the most, everything else is mostly just updates, which I've put in of, waiting on things and or need things.
Well, I was surprised to get a note from who sent it to me. I guess Bill, you sent me a note, and then very quickly I took a look, and I was away for the weekend. I was up at my mother-in-law's working on her house, so not in front of a computer and not thinking radio or anything. And so I looked into it as quick as I could on Monday morning, and talked to our previous webmaster is Darren KC0ZIE, and he is transitioning out of that position, and we have somebody else, but it's been difficult getting that transition to happen. As a lot of you know, working with a volunteer organization, it's hard to nail things down. So he is the one that is the contact from GoDaddy. That's our service provider right now, and he did go back and look through his emails, and he did get a kind of a weird, suspicious email that he just filed away as spam, as you oftentimes get. We all get that. And I mean, it really did look kind of weird. And I had, click here and on the note as if to, a big phishing scam. So he had just filed that away. And all of a sudden, of course, we lost service. We were suspended. And the issue was the FTP site and how we're utilizing it. And just a quick history lesson. We created this FTP site. Boy, I think it's been almost 3 years now. And the idea was initially Alabama didn't have a way to record any of the data that we were collecting. And so we thought, well, FTP would be a simple, easy way to deploy on Raspberry Pis. And we looked into whether GoDaddy would provide that service. And they said, well, what are you going to do with it? And then we said, we're going to have data uploaded to it as a repository. And they said, okay, go ahead and do it. So they opened up an FTP site, but it's a full-blown open FTP site. It doesn't have any security. It's not SFTP. It's something that we could definitely have someone get in and poke around at. And Darren did a very nice job providing a web front end that if we wanted to look at the files that were in the repository, we could look and see all the files in the repository. And if you click on one, you can download it. And as many people figured out, you could also run FTP commands and download it as well. And so instead of just uploading to the repository, we've got a lot of downloading going on, and that appears to be the problem. And we had all of the files up on the repository, well over 90,000 files, I think. And, that's a year's worth of data. And of course, it exploded in April when we had the Grape 2 come on. That was something I didn't know we were going to deposit at our repository, but it was working fine until we got too much of traffic going out of the repository, being more of a file server. So that was the complaint. I don't know exactly what the limits were and how much was moving. Darren didn't elaborate on that, and I can look into it if we need to. But Darren's a really trusted friend and a good guy, and he has done some great work for us. And so he felt bad that this had slipped through. So, long story short, we're up and running. Everything seems to have recovered, and which is really great. The buffering worked great, and move forward. But the question is, what's the long-term solution? Are we going to continue to use this? This was a temporary thing we put together 3 years ago, or at least that's how we had originally talked about it. I know several months ago there was a discussion. This is right when the Grape 2 came out, that yes, we wanted the Grape 2 data to be at Alabama, but it wasn't something that we could navigate at the time because of getting the deployment out and getting all the ironing out all the pieces, parts of that. So that's where we are today, and I'll hand it back. I don't know what you want to do next.
I sent out an email last night about this. I don't know if you'd had a chance to read it yet, Dave, but I'm actually one of the culprits of the downloading, maybe the main one. But the New England group downloads about 54 megabytes a day of Grape 1 data from 14 sites, stations, to do the multi-plot graphs that we send out to the New England group and a number of other HAMSI members for research, and also just to make sure our stations are in agreement and active. So that's maybe a big part of it. I don't know how much other data is being downloaded, but 54 megabytes is for that purpose. The other part of it is that for Grape 2, we download the all the log files from the active stations, and currently there are 22 or 23 active stations for Grape 2. So we download 24 megabytes per day of Grape 2 logs, and those are compressed. So it's a total of 78 megabytes downloads a day for those purposes. We could cut back on that by compressing some of the data, some of the CSV files for Grape 1. We can get about at least a 5-to-1 or maybe a 10-to-1 reduction on that 54 megabytes. And we can reduce the log sizes for Grape 2 now as well. So, once, if you can get some numbers about what the limit is on your agreement with GoDaddy, and then what other downloads may be occurring in addition to ours, then maybe we can attack this problem.
Yeah, I guess I was concerned about the fact that people share, well, how are you getting those files when it's not really obvious, and so that gets spread around, and
yeah,
it's out of the bottle. We really can't control. We're not filtering anybody. We're not trying to keep anybody from getting into the repository, to get there.
right.
I don't know if we can set those controls on an FTP site that we've got. It's pretty darn basic FTP, so I don't know if that's built in, if we can, do that. But that's getting into management that we really don't want to do on our end. we do
Right.
take the data that we've collected so far and we do have it in a Zenodo posting, correct?
Yes, but it depends on what data for the daily plots. So the stuff that's updated on Zenodo, and I don't believe Christina is here, but it's usually done every couple months. So it really depends on what data you're trying to get your hands on.
Right, and I know the most recent data is the most interesting. I mean, we want to be able to sort of react to it real time. I get how that works. So, is there a way that we could move the data from our website to somewhere else? And then people go to that other place to get that data? I mean, that's sort of what the Zenodo is supposed to be. I don't know how often that can be updated, if it can be automated, if it could be done every day, so that we're more collecting the data, not dispensing the data. That's the concern. And I don't know exactly what limits, I guess we can look into it. I will say Darren is got some issues going on in his life that he doesn't really have a lot of time to pour into this. And so my posting yesterday to Hamside, the Google, the Grape group, was if anybody would like to get involved in helping us manage, doing this, if we're going to continue to do it, we need some help. Beyond Darren needs to step away from that job. So
I'll be happy to help, Dave, if we can go offline and discuss.
Okay, we'll talk about it, Bill. That'd be great. And I think,
right.
Not to give you more to do, but
That's okay.
We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things to do is understand what the agreement with GoDaddy is and how much actually we can download.
I don't know the limits, and I should, but I don't. Just leave it to somebody else. We have a board meeting tonight. We'll talk about it tonight as far as how we get extra help to do that. The management of the website is not a problem, but it's the management of the data that's in the FTP repository.
Right.
Darren has zipped up things, and so if you go and look at that repository, it's probably a lot smaller. But again, the question is how much is being moved out of the, how much is being downloaded on a regular basis, and I'll try to find that out. I'll look into that.
All right.
I might also shoot Christina an email about maybe making the Zenodo update more up to date or more automated, because the problem is that the more we talk about Grape and all of the data, a lot of people probably want to look at the data, and most science is done on some kind of fair principle, that people would probably be interested in recent events more than historical ones. So,
but is that not why we're collecting data, so that people can look at it and research?
Well, I think it's interesting if you were to go back with, we've had this discussion a long time ago. But just a few months ago, John, was sort of defending the fact that he didn't have time to try to move to working with the Alabama repository. I don't see Bill on here this morning. And also Nathaniel was sort of making the point, yes, we are going to move the data over to Alabama or to something other than WWV ARC. And so I'm just bringing that conversation back up to the front. And when those guys are available to comment, I think it would be good. I don't know how hard that is to do. And I was under the impression that we had a lot of storage space all of a sudden at Alabama. So did I get that wrong? Or?
No, I think that's what I heard too. They have a new grant or something and opened up a lot of storage space.
But I don't know. I mean, colleges may be very, they're very protective of their networks. They may be also concerned about using FTP openly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or if there's a better file transfer protocol, then we should figure that out.
Yeah. Well, but what might alleviate some of the strain is having the Zenodo up to date, because then if we can just get people to download from the Zenodo instead of downloading from, like, if they're, to be fair, I think most of the time when I share links to the data and everything, I'm obviously sharing the Zenodo repository. But I think if that becomes a little bit faster updating, that might help in the meanwhile. Because
I can definitely change my nightly runs to download from Zenodo. That's
But
easy.
only if Sonota gets updated every day, right?
Yeah, right.
So that
Because
would be,
I think there are people actively looking at the multi-plots. I know Christina is, I know I send it out to Rachel and David has been, others maybe on the list, I forget, but, so, but I can change that to download from Zenodo easily.
One thing I'm thinking about is if, and I don't know the number, I'm just making this off the top of my head. Say every day, the 100 or so Grape users we have upload 150 megabytes WWV. Boom. And if every day we want to download that to the Zenodo, which is a great idea, we're going to download 150 megabytes to Zenodo every day. So we got to figure out where that fits in with a GoDaddy picture.
Yeah.
That's
well, I
fair.
think
we won't
doing
be
it
solving that
once,
problem.
I think downloading it one time would be fine, but if we've got, 15 users downloading it, that's different. Maybe if one person from the Grape group downloads it and then distributes it to the rest, I don't know, there's probably a better method to do this, but just trying to remind everybody that it was supposed to be temporary, and so we're relying on it heavily at this point. And I think it should be a priority that we figure out a different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, unfortunately,
So,
Rochelle,
so
John, and
my
Bill.
tasks are, I will definitely, find out what the limitations are if we're allowed to, when we're downloading. And I'll try to find out exactly what the traffic volume actually was that raised the flag. I'd like to know that more than anything.
Okay, and I can work with you, Dave, on.
And then we'll work
any of
offline
those.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
I think that's all I've got.
I have an unusual local problem that happened here a few days ago. We're in the middle of our summer rainy season, and sometimes the god Thor throws all sorts of lightning bolts at us. We lost power for a couple of hours, and when the Grape DRF came back online, something didn't work quite right, and I didn't notice until the next day when it downloaded all of the data. And it turns out that the data for the 5th of August contains a bunch of files which I suspect are real-time 5th of August files, but the dates in those files are renamed 2023 last year, November 21 and 22. And there's even a correct date in there. The last file or two actually have the current August 5th. So there's a possibly bad set of files somewhere uploaded to the University of Alabama system that has wrong dates or wrong information or wrong something. I just wonder what is the best thing for me to do about that. Talk to Bill Engel.
Yeah, Bill Engelke would probably be your best bet.
I'll see if I can find an email. I think I have it and send an email off to him. But anyway, so strange things do happen. And the problem was the 2-hour power outage and then bringing the system back online. Somehow it did not come back online with the proper date for files. It did eventually correct itself. And then I went and reset it, and that made sure it corrected itself. Anyway, that's my comments for this morning. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, it does seem like you have August. Oh no, you don't. It's cut out. I was about to say you have August 8 data posted, but it looks like after the first few minutes it's just blank. So yeah, perhaps send a note to Bill about that.
This would have been August 4th, 5th time frame. I forget exactly when the outage was. Had to go around and reset all the
Like cut out this. Actually, I'll share what I'm looking at.
But it did put a November of last year date stamp on all the files, which I suspect are good files.
Yeah, that's curious. But if it's something to do with the reboot procedure, we should probably also talk to John.
I'm just bringing it up as a potential problem and something to watch out for when people are analyzing the data. And, you know, they're analyzing August of this year data and suddenly come up with November of last year files, and that's or file names. I suspect the data is probably correct, but the file names are probably incorrect, or almost certainly incorrect. Anyway, weird situation. Thanks, Mother Nature, for helping to turn out our lights.
Mhm.
Oh, we've had some nasty summer storms here also. Don't last very long, but they lightning and have to run around and disconnect some of the more sensitive electronic stuff. I've got a lot of things running here.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, or concerns? Gary, I didn't know if you had any updates you wanted to talk about with the website.
Yeah, I would like to show something on the screen if I could.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me share. Close that. Okay, so all this Zoom dribble out of the way. So last week I briefly showed a new kind of a landing page for the personal space weather station. Because my goal is if we introduce this project and the PSWS and its many different modules, remember we've got receivers and magnetometers, and eventually we're going to have a VLF system. People may not be familiar with Hamside, be familiar with the project. They're going to find a link to our PSWS page, and this was designed to give them some sort of overview, how to get involved and what the components are, and the research questions and where to go for further information. So obviously there's gigabytes of data, or rather information, on all these projects, but I wanted to keep something and be fairly succinct. So I thought the next step in that process is for each of the existing PSWS modules. Again, eventually we'll add the VLF on here and the RX88 there. For each one of these existing modules, people could click on a picture of it and learn more about it. So I started to do something with the Grape 1 FL Digi, because it's the original and probably the easiest. So I said, okay, what would the Grape 1, what would a page for one of these modules potentially look like? And I just, again, like to hear others' opinions. If I'll put the link in the chat and people can get back to me either during or after the meeting, which is fine. But I figured, if a person wasn't familiar with this project, wanted to see what's up, they'd say, hey, I want to know what the FL Digi or the Grape 1 looks like. So there's one particular example, but also what does it do? So I figured at the top of the page, you should also have a plot. I happened to grab one from Eclipse Day because it was interesting. But anyhow, just an overview, which is again copied from some of the other pages on the site, of what the Grape 1 FL Digi version is about. I thought it would be interesting, especially to the technical types, people who would want to dig into the details on some of these things a little bit, kind of have a specifications block like you would have on any sort of data sheet on a piece of scientific equipment. But I can get together with John and fill some of this stuff in that I don't know. But with a purpose, what frequencies it's good for, sensitivity, dynamic range, receive bandwidth, and so on and so forth. And the idea is if somebody wanted to, they could bounce among the different grapes or the RX88 and see what some of these differences are eventually, once the stuff is all filled in. But a little bit about the computer, the operating system, and what software is running there. So again, a person who's not familiar with this thing can at least get a little bit of flavor about what's going on. And then I put in a sourcing section. Of course, the Grape 1 FL Digi is pretty much the do-it-yourself version. I know we've got some issues with sourcing the SA612s and whatnot, but anyhow, eventually if I had the other modules and do the same thing, the Grape 2, yeah, we've built them, we've deployed them, but occasionally we do have some units in hand that that we can deploy to people, that people can host for us at very low cost. And I want to be able to put that information here, our contact information, so people who are interested can get a hold of us and either be putting on a wait list, or you can work with them to get some of the units which have come back, which you were talking about earlier, Rachel. And then a little bit of video there and stuff too. But of course, the further information page, direct everyone to our Google group, and then back to the original overview page if they got here from somewhere else, and so on and so forth. So again, this is kind of a format I'm thinking about using for each one of the modules: the FL Digi, the DRF, which of course will be very similar. Eventually, a page to the magnetometer, the RX-88, and the other things that are part of the PSWS. So let me put the links to this stuff in the chat, and hopefully people can take a look and let me know what you think, and then I can move forward and do more of the same if people decide they like it.
Gary,
That's it.
Ampest presentation, one particular slide showing the Grape 1 receiver and a quarter nearby enlisted some interesting comments from the audience about the very tiny size of these things. And John sitting there with one of them in the palm of his hand, just that just reinforces the very small size of these Grape receivers.
I very much.
I'm sorry again, Rachel. I doubled with you.
Oh no, you're good. I said I thought it looked great. I like that there's a labeled diagram. I like that there's an example of the data that you get out of that specific version of the Grape.
Yeah,
I
looks really good.
But I really like.
I see a comment in the chat. We should have a section about the data, which makes it's kind of the whole point, right? So let me figure out how to work that in there too. That's good.
Well, that was a good slide of one of the eclipse days.
Yeah, being in Cleveland helped a lot.
There was one posted on the internet where someone in Atlanta, Georgia, got an almost plus or minus 1 hertz shift in the Doppler. Beautiful, beautiful eclipse. He put a day before and then day of the eclipse, the total eclipse. I didn't get anything like that here. I got a quarter of that here in Arizona.
Okay, that's it for me.
I have one more remark, Rachel, when you have time.
Absolutely, we have time now.
There's a bug in the magnetometer reader program that causes it to terminate when it misses a pulse per second from the GPS clock. And I fixed that bug, but I haven't distributed the fix yet. And I need to do that, but I was waiting for John to get on to just give me the okay. And so just people that are running the magnetometers, is I think 5 of us on Grape 2, this is only Grape 2, will need to apply this fix manually when it comes out, and there will be an email coming out. I don't know if anyone is on today who is running a magnetometer with Grape 2, but just expect that. And in addition, everybody running Grape 2 should probably upgrade this with this new fix in case you add a magnetometer in the future. So this will go out to everyone. Just expect it in the next few days once I get the okay from John. And the likelihood of missing 1 pulse, over a period of weeks is pretty high. Unfortunately, it's not happening on John's machine himself, so he doesn't see the problem, but everybody else has seen it. So it's important to get the fix out. That's it.
Great. I will say, I don't know if John is going, I don't know when John will continue, like, come back to these meetings with the ongoing tower
Yeah,
stuff, so I don't know if you meet with him separately still, or if you
we
would like me.
we don't have a
No.
regular meeting, but I'll be in contact with him. You know, I have his text and I know where he lives.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, we will make a decision on when to roll this out. So
Yeah.
One other minor things, if you want to put in the minutes, we had another Raspberry Pi failure. One of the Grape 2s, Chuck KE9SA. I got in there, did some fixing and got his Grape 2 back on the air. But I'm going to contact John and see if he's got another spare Raspberry Pi 4, so we can I can get that to Chuck, and then he can get his original Grape back on the air too. So
it was a failure in the Pi, or
yeah, I believe so, Bill. Yes,
okay, KE9SA.
right.
Okay.
I think he may have included you on the email yesterday, if I remember. I can't.
Oh, I don't remember seeing it, but
Maybe it went to someone else.
no, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sent it to Bill Engelke. Never mind.
All right.
It fails to load the OS and the SD card.
Okay.
And that maybe that's a Grape 1 FL Digi. But anyhow, that's so I just want to get another Pi to him. That's all.
Right.
Are you sure it's the Pi and not the SD card?
Well, Chuck seems to have troubleshot it pretty well reading his email. So
Yeah, just curious because we've had SD cards fail.
He may just need another SD card made for him by Bill Engelke. So, or if he can recover his existing one.
Okay.
Believe it or not, sometimes I've recovered it by putting it in my Macintosh and doing disk repair.
Huh. Yeah, could just need a file system check. FSCK.
The failure here with the Grape DRF was the interface between the SATA hard disk and the USB. And that just flat failed, and I don't know what the problem is. I just replaced the whole thing, and that solved my problem.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? And Gary, do you want these links posted in the minutes, or do you prefer they just stay for the people in the chat?
no, they can go in the minutes. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Comment, Rachel?
Yes.
Gary, the Pi's replaced.
Ah, good.
But I did notice you sent me an 8 gigahertz Pi. Now I assume it's compatible, but I think
Or
we've
8.
been using 4s, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I mean, it's got 8 gigabytes. It's just got extra memory.
Well, it says the box says it's 8 gigabytes. I haven't turned it on yet, but I just an
Shouldn't be a
observation.
problem. Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear somebody say we have 2 sites that the Grape 1 DRFs can go out to now, or what, Gary?
I know Bob is repairing 5 DRFs and John's working on a couple of Grape 2s, recycling them. So no, I don't have
Okay.
any people identified yet at the moment. That's
Okay.
kind of my next thing to do. I wanted to get the website going because Nathaniel had some suggestions about some kind of a new groups to go out to. And I wanted to get the website in place so they'd have something to look at.
Yeah, I think there was a short list of people who were, if we'd just had more grapes, we probably would have sent them one pre-eclipse. So if they're still interested, I think it'd be worth reaching out to them. In general, I think we prioritize deploying to stations that we believed would keep the stations as long as possible after the eclipse as well.
Yeah.
But there are probably a few more stations on the initial volunteers list that would be willing to host a grape even in non-eclipse times.
I certainly have that list, so I will open that up today and take a look at it.
Gary, is there any particular part of the country you're hoping to be able to cover? I'm guessing somewhere up toward the northwest corner.
I mean, it's not a surprise. The less populated parts of the country, the Montanas and Dakotas and even Wyoming and what have less coverage. But no, I mean, so far as where they should go, that's more of a decision for Rachel and the folks doing the research to give us some guidance.
Thank you.
Gary, do we have need for Alaska installations?
It depends on
Well,
where it is. But you have an Alaska station.
But Alaska's pretty darn big too, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's what really.
The Alaska station is my son. And he's quite busy since he works in the tourist industry. And is on the road a lot.
All right, I'm
So,
working with an FAA radar engineer. The FAA has her in Alaska, probably for long term. She just bought a house. So where is your son?
the station is in Anchorage.
Let me check on where she is. As you said, Alaska is a big state.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a super current map.
Would there be any chance of putting one up at that Canadian Research Island or a station that's up about 80 degrees north latitude, up somewhere in the vicinity of Hudson Bay? Would there be?
Funny you should mention that, Joe, because I was gonna talk to Bill Lyles and Rob Robinette if I could. They just put an RX-88 receiving system up there, if I recall,
Oh, okay.
literally in the last week or so.
Yes, and it's now working.
Yeah, I think Nathaniel wanted me to make a little news item for the website. So maybe after the call, Bill and Rob, if you guys could stay on for a minute or two, just so I could get a couple of newsworthy quotes I can follow up with on that.
Well, let's have it work for a couple of weeks first.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, do we still have we specifically shut down the volunteer list when we ran out of grapes, but is there still a way for someone to volunteer or add themselves to that backlog, or do we want to start with people who expressed interest previously?
Yeah, that's a good question, because to put the form back up on the website, the volunteer interest form is just a few minutes worth of work. The key to doing that though is to getting the word out make people aware that the form is there and then
right. Well, I don't think we need to redo the whole search. My only concern is that we have to like email people individually who we didn't send a grape to before and say, oh, are you still interested in having a grape, and get feedback from them. So if that goes smoothly, then it might be fine. But while that happens, we might have a lot of people saying like, oh, and if a grape ever becomes available, I'd love to have my name on a list. But more as a, if a grape ever becomes available at some point in the future problem, more of a, less than a, would you like a grape for the eclipse, yes or no question. But
Yeah, I see.
All right, yeah, let me give that a little thought, and I'll refresh if I need to the list, and send you a link if it's a reminder where that list was at, where you had access, and we'll figure out what to do.
And there were a few educational places on that list that are probably more likely to still want to host data collection sites and things. And so I think that's it for me. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Maybe I'll cautiously say 73 then.
All right, have a good week, everyone.
73 all.
You too.
73.
Here, 7-3.